Hey, everybody, welcome to Hearing God in 1 Timothy 3. And just as a review of the setting, the Apostle Paul is writing this letter to his young protege, Timothy, who is given the task of organizing the church at Ephesus so that it can be a healthy, God glorifying church. And it had some unique challenges with some false teachers who had crept in and were leading the church astray. And Paul writes to give Timothy instruction on how to set that situation in order and how to organize the church to be healthy and God glorifying. And part of that organization is the establishment of elders and deacons. Elders are those who shepherd, who oversee, who lead the church, and deacons are those who literally serve the needs of the church. And so for my highlight, my H in my Here journal, I chose verse 10, and this is in the section that is outlining the qualifications for deacons. And it says in verse 10, and let them also be tested first, then let them serve as deacons if they prove themselves blameless. And for my E, or explanation in my Here journal, it simply said God prescribes for prospective deacons at Ephesus that they be tested and proved that they are up to the task. And very short explanation, because there isn't a whole lot to say about that, except that this is what the prescription was for deacons at Ephesus. And for my application, which is a little bit more involved, my A in my Here journal, I said, this is exactly what God does with all of us, whether we're elders or deacons or not. He tests us to prove us so that we can be entrusted with greater responsibility and greater blessing in his kingdom. For us to have increased capacity, increased responsibility in God's kingdom, he has to grow us in that capacity. And that requires testing. And the fact of the matter is, I'm probably no different than you in that I don't really like tests. One of the things I think is great about not being in school anymore is I don't have to take written tests or any other kind of test. We don't typically like tests because they can be hard, they can be stressful. But the fact of the matter is, any good teacher will tell you that tests are necessary to refine us and to prove us and to grow us for greater things. And so the application for me personally, and probably for many of us, is that rather than dread these tests that God brings to us for our good, rather than dread them, we need to have a change of attitude and embrace them, to be thankful for them. We should lean into them and leverage them for all the good that we can squeeze out of them. Because again, God will use those tests for our good to increase our capacity, to increase our responsibility, and also to increase our blessing. And those are things that as children of God, we should be very passionate about and say, I want those things. But if we want those things, then we will also embrace the fact that testing from God will be necessary. And so for my R, or response, I simply said, Father, I confess that I dread the tests and tend to shrink back from them. Left to myself, I will take the easy way, the path of least resistance. But such an attitude hinders my growth and my ability to bear more responsibility in your kingdom. So help me to be one who embraces the tests. So I don't know what tests you may be facing today. And I don't want to sugarcoat it and say that tests are not, or that tests are easy. They're not. Tests are hard by nature. But again, I think one of the amazing things about our God is that he works all things for our good. And that includes the hard tests that we have to deal with in our lives. And so if you're going through a test right now, I just want to encourage you and say, rather than dread it, rather than shrink back from it, embrace it, leverage it, let God use it for all the good that he possibly can to increase your growth and your capacity, your responsibility in his kingdom. Because with that also comes great blessing. So hope you have a blessed evening. We'll see you again soon.